Welcome to the Riff and Chips podcast crossover mini-series. I'm your host, Phil Vernon, and today's guest is Chris Earl, host of The Core You Know. The Core You Know started up in 2024 and gives members of bands an opportunity to wax lyrical about their favourite core-adjacent records. Chris was kind enough to invite me onto his pod to talk about the incredible Opposite of December by Poison the Well, so it only seemed right to return the favour and get him to discuss his chippy order. Join us as we discuss the current Newcastle metal and hardcore scene, an underrated Killswitch Engage classic, and different curry sauces and their applications. Chris, welcome to Riff and Chips.
Thank you very much for having me, Phil.
No, absolute pleasure. You had me on the first episode of The Core You Know, so when I kind of came up with the idea to do this crossover mini-series, you were one of the first names on my list. I thought it was just about right to return the favour.
Nice little full circle moment. Big fan of Riff and Chips, and was sort of one of the kind of inspirations behind, my pod.
Oh, it's nice to know.
Really, really happy to be on. I just hope that, my fish and chips takes don't end up getting me cancelled, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll get to that in a bit. You do have to be very careful. Like you said, you've heard the pod before. You kind of know our standard format, so we'll start how we always start. And how did a young Chris initially get into heavy music?
So my dad had a few tapes in his car. It's shaped my music taste because my music taste goes absolutely wild both directions. He had tapes that were some, mix of 80s stuff, the type of stuff that as soon as you get in the car and GTA Vice City you hear. But then there was also a bit of Priest, bit of Morbid Angel in there. Nothing too ridiculous.
Morbid Angel, nothing too ridiculous. But
not like
there's
a non-ridiculous Morbid Angel track, but that kind of thing, that kind of shaped us from a young age. But it wasn't until he passed when I was 11. It took a bit of time for me to get back into music type of stuff. And by that point, new metal, Linkin Park, Slipknot. I will say now, I've never been a fan of Korn, apart from the singles. I've never been a fan of Deftones. But that sort of thing just didn't grab me as much. It was definitely more Slipknot. Getting Kerrang TV was massive as well. So many bands through there, hearing so many different sounds. And then I think there was a time when I was just buying CDs that looked cool and I'd heard the names of. Bands like Poison the Well, Caliban, Killswitch Engage.
This has come up on the pod in the past a few times, obviously we're of the similar sort of vintage. And I think because of that, and I guess the scene that we're in, kind of a lot of the people that I've chatted on the pod have kind of been maybe 5 years either way, maybe.
Yeah.
So we've all kind of grew up in that same sort of era where we've had this a lot, Kerrang TV, obviously a huge thing, especially, if you're in your teenage years.
Scuzz as well for
P-Rock even.
Yeah. One of the first things I remember seeing on P-Rock was the Stickman video for My Girlfriend's Dead by the Vandals.
Yeah.
I just love that so much.
So there's two things that always take me back to P-Rock. One is Take the Reins by Tsunami Bomb, which is still unreal. Yeah. And the other one, which I really didn't like as much because I'm not a big ska guy, was Zen Baseball Bat. And I think the song was called Brown Cows of Elocution or something like that. I'm really sorry to Zen Baseball Bat. I'm sure you love it, guys. But for me, it was just this terrible sort of it really wasn't my thing whatsoever. But even though there was loads of things that you associate, for some reason, they're the two things that always kind of bring me back to it, or the first things that come into my mind when I think about it, for sure.
That's not ringing a bell for me at all.
Have a listen to it after this. It won't be in your wheelhouse.
In terms of ska, I think, I had some Tony Hawk's games as a kid.
Yeah.
There was a game called Aggressive Inline, which is an inline skating game, and that had some bangers on. That had stuff like Crawl in the Dark by Hoobastank.
That is a banger.
Sell Out by Real Big Fish, stuff like that. But a mix of bands, a mix of influences at that time. I've talked about this on the pod before, but when you're that age, you do end up being a little bit edgy, and you see some albums.
Yeah.
No, I don't even mean gatekeeping. I mean,
just that's got a gory cover. I'm gonna buy that sort of thing. Yeah,
that's how I discovered Bleeding Through, just because of the covers being so, and thinking my mum will fucking hate that.
Yeah,
and becoming a massive part of my life. And I think you're right. Similar vintage, similar age, similar channels, similar games, and I've heard before, no one's first favourite band is Dying Fetus.
No.
You got to start somewhere and you build up and you find out what parts of music tickle your brain in the best way. So I went through various phases of being more metal, more hardcore, more metal, more hardcore type of thing. And it does fluctuate.
I think, again, back of people of our sort of age, there seem to be two main routes through, and this has come up before. You had the people that came the punk way and they kind of got into heavier stuff via Green Day, The Offspring, Blink, stuff like that. And then you had the people which was me and maybe what sounds more like you, who came more through I know it wasn't necessarily Korn and Deftones, but Korn, Slipknot, Deftones, Linkin Park, the new metal-y sort of route.
Yeah.
What about early shows? So who was the kind of first show you went to?
I want to say my first proper show, I think I was about 15. I can't remember which came first because I'm fucking old. It was either a Funeral for a Friend show on the first album, on Casually Dressed.
Was that the tour they did with Further Seems Forever?
It
was their headline shows. I remember I saw them touring with that, and I think it was them, Further Seems Forever, and...
Receiving End of Sirens.
Oh, I can't remember. I know they did a couple of tours around that time.
It might have been that one, or which, absolutely loved. Funeral for a Friend, like a big band. Not, the heavy stuff, but the more emotional stuff. Again, being an emotional teenager, it was just like, pour me heart out of that.
Yeah, great
Or
band.
The Trivium, God Forbid, and Mendy's tour.
Yes. I remember seeing that at the Apollo in Manchester. Yeah.
And that's one of the first proper heavy shows that I went to, like in the pit and stuff. Because there was also around that time was Both My Valentine, Gallows, and As I Lay Dying, I want to say.
Sounds about right. There was loads of tours around
Gallows got booed off like regularly at that point.
There was loads of tours kind of back that sort of early era, especially like early Bullet for My Valentine things when they were like supporting. Did they tour with like 36 Crazy Fists to like 18 Visions or something like that? There was some of those early Bullet tours where they were like either opening up or kind of on second for touring metalcore bands, I guess. Pretty much off the back of the EP, because as soon as the album came out, they were a headline band from that point onwards, really, weren't they? So, and were these shows, because obviously you're northeast based, so were these kind of in Newcastle, these shows, or?
Yeah, they were all in Newcastle. Didn't really have the money or the means to travel for shows.
It's a bit isolated up there, isn't it? Like, getting to London is a chore, or even getting to somewhere like Leeds, and that is a bit of a mission. Like,
it's a B city, and it shouldn't be. But and I don't mean this in any way. I fucking love Newcastle, but in terms of like touring bands, it's a B city, and so many tours have missed out Newcastle, and I've just not been able to go. I tell you what, one of a good tour I've got memory of was one of the Taste of Chaos ones, which came to the Metro Radio Arena, had like Census Fail, Lexus on Fire, Taking Back Sunday, those few kind of bands. That was really good.
It got really big there, because I remember they started off like almost like academy tours, those, and then they did build up to like arenas at the end, didn't they?
For one of the weaker lineups as well, like one of the genuinely weaker lineups when you look back at it, but it got the biggest venues for it, which I always think was quite mad. Went to university in Middlesbrough, seen a few more gigs there, started going to a few shows around the country. And yeah, I think when I left university, Newcastle started to get a few more bands coming up, a few smaller venues, started to get some good little gigs in. I saw one of the favourite shows of all time. I saw Fell Attack in a little room called Think Tank, which was absolutely just one of those sweaty nights.
Yeah.
But no, I think recently Newcastle has gone a lot better. Our hardcore metal scene in particular is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It seems to be popping up on kind of smaller, not actually smaller bands, but like UK kind of touring bands. It almost seems to be like stop every time now. I know the Hidden Mothers tour came through there recently. Bands like 100 Year Old Man, any kind of band of that sort of level that have been going through tours. I know is it Little Buildings that a lot of people seem to play at?
Yeah, Little Buildings is great, and that's where the Hidden Mothers tour was, and it lives up to its name. It's absolutely tiny.
I have heard. I'm really intrigued. I would quite like to play it, so hopefully we'll come up at some point. But yeah, it's. I
think if your band's got more than 4 members, it's a tight squeeze up there.
100-year-old man will manage. This has come up a few times, quite specifically when we chatted to James from Mastiff about towns like Hull and some of these, as you referred to them, more kind of like B towns. It seems weird referring to Newcastle as that, but from a touring point of view, it definitely is like almost like a second level city, isn't it?
It's really surprising that it is, but it is.
Yeah, I think again it's because it's not really on the way to anywhere, and I think that's what you're saying. It's like places like Liverpool, Hull. You have to kind of go out your way to go to them. And unless you've got a real committed group of local promoters that are willing to kind of like try and convince those bands to come and doing it regularly and building that scene, it just doesn't happen. And I think in Newcastle, obviously, there's quite a few. I mean, I know Biker Grave are one, aren't they? Like a kind of local promoter that, for a few years have been really pushing to try and like build that consistent scene in Newcastle, especially for like, heavier bands and stuff, to make it a bit of a mustn't miss kind of touring stop, especially for like a domestic touring band.
I'm not going to sit here and say I've got like massive knowledge of promoters and people over the years. But all I can talk about is now. And as you mentioned, Biker Grave are doing really, really well. Conviction Records as well. Obviously, we had Speed, had See You Space Cowboy.
Nice.
We've got Scowl coming later in the year.
Yeah, and these are the sort of bands, like I say, in the past, they do tours of like 10 shows, but it'd be Leeds, London, Manchester, Cardiff, whatever, Glasgow. They weren't stopping at Newcastle, these bands in the past. So like you say, the fact that you're getting those now shows that there's confidence, and all you need is 2 or 3 bands to do that, and it just rolls on then.
Yeah, I think a lot of bands are seeing that, okay, this band of this size got a venue sold out in Newcastle. We'll go there. Whether, it is smaller bands stopping off. Obviously, Speed had played Manchester, but, we got them up here. And I think Anarchy Brewery, where Speed and See You Space Cowboy played, it's recently been renovated and redone out.
Right.
It was good before, don't get me wrong, but they've made it a bit bigger, they've made it a bit more modern. It's a very attractive, middler size venue.
Yeah, I was going to say, what sort of cap room's that then?
It's a good few hundred, so maybe between 300 and 500, depending on how they set it out.
Yeah, that's a nice size for like venues for the sort of bands that you were talking about. Like, yeah,
Newcastle's suffered for. It's got the Academy.
Yeah, it's
got like City Hall and stuff. That kind of thing, and it's got the arena. We've got a good amount of quite small places like the Cluny, and that's our Cluny 1 and Cluny 2, which is a basement one. When Code Orange supported the Trivium on their UK tour, Code Orange should decide show in Newcastle, and Employ to Serve opened for them. If anyone's listening from Newcastle, Cluny 1, you've got like quite a thin bit up the top where there's a little bar and people normally do merch. Then there's about 3 steps down and just a long, thin space.
Yeah.
And like Code Orange on forever in that room was insane. Saw Malevolence just before Malicious Intent in that room as well. And that's about 150 cap.
Right, okay.
Which is ludicrous for like a band like, even before Malicious Intent came out, for a band like Malevolence, that's ridiculous. And Cluny 2 is just a cool little basement venue, but because it does little amateur theatre or art house performances, it's got a row of seats at the back.
All right, okay.
Which is quite weird, but it's quite cool.
Yeah.
As well. The biggest one I want to shout out is the Lubber Fiend. Amazing venue. It does so much for local charities. If you see a gig by Conviction Records at the Lubber Fiend, you know it's going to be good. You know the lineup's going to be sick. Conviction gigs at the moment, you know whatever he puts on, even if it's not your thing, but even if you haven't heard of them, it's not massively your thing.
Yeah.
He's getting such good packages through.
Nice.
Haywire are playing. Unfortunately, I have to miss that because Newcastle in the cup final. Woo! But like that's massive.
Yeah.
Like Haywire are massive at the moment, and getting them in Newcastle will just be insane.
And that's what you see. All you need is a couple of local promoters, covering all kind of the spectrum of the scene sort of thing. And a scene soon grows. So, long may it continue. And hopefully the people of the Northeast can keep getting some of those 6 shows. So let's move on to the pod. That's kind of what we're here to talk about. As people aren't aware, this is a kind of a mini series where we're chatting to people from a few of the country's beloved rock and metal podcasts. So the core, you started it last year. So kind of where did the idea come from? What kind of made you want to do it?
So I've always been a big fan of just talking about music with people. Whether that's, you meet people at a gig and you talk about the band and you talk about other bands, like that kind of thing. From my point of view, I like hearing a band, you listen to the record and you think, oh, there's a bit of that in there. There's a bit of this in there. And, thinking about influences, that kind of thing. So it was partly a bit of just wanting to talk to people about music, because obviously we've met at festivals and stuff before and had like a massive natter on about bands, and I genuinely just love it. I could talk for hours about my favourite bands, my favourite albums, memories about and stuff like that. So I thought, why the hell not? Obviously with Noise, and a massive shout out to Noise, they're so good, so helpful. Mm-hmm. They said, look, okay, and you can use our Zoom account, we'll give you a platform to host it on. Because I had no idea what I was doing. I had an idea. Yeah. I was the ideas man. And Jack, the owner of Noise, said he liked it. And I spent about 2 or 3 days trying to come up with a name. And Will from Noise, a good amount of you listening will probably know Will. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, top lad.
I literally just said, I'm trying to still think of a name. And he just came out with the core, And I was just like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
That's better than anything I've came up with.
Yeah, it's a great title. Who was the lady that did the art for you?
Her name's Zoe. She's not really on Twitter at the moment, but I think she's on Instagram. and she's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
She's someone I've known for quite a while, and one of the reasons I went to her was obviously I know she doesn't really do band pieces or anything like that too much anymore, but she's a graphic designer by trade, and she's really good at what she does. And one of the reasons I went to her was because she she loves heavy music, she's into the scene, and I wouldn't have to say, oh, I want the font all lowercase and have someone ask me why.
Yeah.
And I gave her a little brief. I said, I want it to look a bit, a bit rough, a bit scratchy, take elements of classic metalcore albums, but also some stuff like Poison the Weller, bringing back. And she came to me with a few rips. A few of them were considered, but as soon as I saw what I'm using now, the red, the black, and the white, I just thought it was lush.
Oh, it's perfect. I remember when you shared it with me, like ahead of, we were obviously chatting about it a bit before it started, and you were telling me about the idea, and I remember you shared it with me, and I was like, yeah, it's sick. Like, it's just perfect. Like, say,
perfect.
The lowercase, the font that's been picked, like how it's been presented, like you said, the little kind of like splatters and scratches. It's just, at any point, did you ever consider just having it without any spaces? It wouldn't lay out the same on the artwork, but did you ever, as a bit of a homage to older and I guess current now, we're back into that sort of cycle now of no space.
That was one of the ideas. That was one of the rips she did. It was very CU Space Cowboy-esque.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we couldn't find a way to get it legible enough. I'm not that good at graphic design. I'm hopeless at it. But I said, look, this is the kind of thing I want to go for. And I think that was the third piece she showed me. And I was just like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
And what she does with the renders for the episodes, quite faded, quite scratchy, really lends the aesthetic that I'm going for. But that's just what I love.
Yeah.
About it.
Yeah, that's great. Shout out the graphic designers that do it. I think I've been quite clear. I think I've said it at the end of all my episodes, but Ryan, the drummer from Cops, kind of does he's done all our album layouts and stuff, and he does all my little cover photos and pretty much any image that I put on Instagram that isn't just a photo. So shout out these people in the background that do the work. We take all the credit for hosting these pods, but there's a lot of people in the background that help us out that don't get as much credit. So big shout out to those people.
Well, like I said, it was more the fact that I wouldn't have, she knows this type of stuff. She wouldn't have to go research. She obviously did research, but she wouldn't have to be like, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah, you're not kind of taking up months of her time over something. Yeah.
There's another podcaster I've been on a few times called Dingo Platinum. It's from Distorted Sound by a guy called Tim. We talk about underrated albums, and she's done the artwork for that as well off the back of the Core But yeah, it was really good. It was a good idea. Obviously, you were the first guest, and you were kind of the first person because of I knew because of your experience with riff and trips, but also that kind of thing, that kind of format where it is quite a relaxed chat, and that was kind of one of the ideas I was basing it on. I never wanted it to be too formal, like this podcast. There's a set structure, but it's not in stone. It's not rigid.
Yeah.
Obviously, you agreed to do it. I think it was obvious what we were going to talk about. Yeah. It was obvious, and that, again, that's one of the reasons why I wanted, because it was right. Okay, you're not going to come in with an obscure as hell album. It's an album we both know, we could both talk about for so long. And
I think nearly every episode you've done so far, I probably could have talked quite well about most. Like, it really falls into my wheelhouse, the core thing. I mean, I would say probably 90% of the episodes that you've put out now, it's like, you'll put out a new episode, it's like, yep, I could have talked about that record. Yep, I definitely could have talked about that record. So like, it really does fit into my kind of sphere of influence, I guess. So for people that aren't aware, the format is that you invite guests on, pick one album in particular, and you kind of focus.
I let them pick it.
Yeah, so you let the guests essentially pick an album that they want to talk about. This is my favorite core adjacent album, and then you just kind of chat about it. So we thought, to give people a bit of a taste of a bit of a, this is a crossover after all, I would turn the tables on you, and I would ask you in the kind of core to talk about a core adjacent record that you love. And you told me that you wanted to chat about As Daylight Dies by Killswitch.
Yes, I did.
So I got excited about that. Anyone that knows me will know that I'm a huge Killswitch guy. So why did you want to chat about As Daylight Dies?
Well, it's been on my mind quite a bit because obviously the new Killswitch albums came out.
Yep.
But one of the comparisons I've made when I've been talking about it is, if you look at some of the earlier Killswitch works, there's tracks you can single out on them as genuinely massive.
Yeah.
So you've got like, My Last Serenade, Soil Burn, Fixation on the Darkness, on Alive or Just Breathing, End of Heartache, Rose of Sharon on the End of Heartache. And I genuinely think that stuff like My Curse is probably their pinnacle of a big track. It's up there with Rose of Sharon.
It's definitely like they were. I mean, without looking, I imagine both of those are in the top 5 Spotify.
Yeah,
they're like the big ones, aren't they? Probably with End of Heartache and Malice Serenade and one other, probably Fixation on the Darkness. It wouldn't surprise me, but yeah, I imagine that's probably the top 5 kind of tracks.
And the reason I wanted to talk about it was because even though it has probably their biggest song, and for you wrestling fans, on the deluxe edition, you've got This Fire Burns.
Yep.
And the Holy Diver covers on the special edition, actually.
It is, yep.
I do think it gets overlooked.
Do you know what?
Quite a bit.
I'd agree. For anyone that's not aware of where this sits in the timeline, it's their kind of the fourth album overall. It's the second album that they did with Howard. Alive or Just Breathing obviously kind of thrust them into the limelight a bit more. End of Heartache kind of sent them stratospheric. And then this was almost like the follow-up to that. And it was like, oh, what are they going to do? And I remember they dropped My Curse as the first single off it. And it was like, okay, yeah, they've gone big. They've still got the hooks. They know what they're doing. Maybe that was the only lead single or the only one I can remember. And then I remember the album coming out and picking it up. And it's a really cool intro, isn't it? Like the whole build up at the start for the title track. It just it draws you in and like just builds up almost all the way through that first song.
So I remember getting it. It came out in November. I got it with some leftover birthday money. Birthday's in October. And I'd heard My Curse, and it's one of those songs where you hear it and if you're into that sort of thing, yes, perfect. And the amount of times over the years I've been a few cans deep and I've been in a rock club and I've stood on the stage and I've pretended I'm Howard and I'm belting it out and I've lost my voice doing it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
End of Heartache opens up with the massive, the drums, the Bid Farewell. It's quite anthemic opening. And comparison, Daylight Dies, it's a much darker, heavier intro. I was just like, holy shit, yes.
The whole song does kind of feel like a build-up. It's not an intro song, it's 4 minutes, it's a full track. But the whole thing feels like it's building up, and then especially when This Is Absolution drops in the second one, straight in with just like dun, 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 and it kicks straight in. It's like, oh, this is what the whole thing was building up to. And then it kind of kicks in and it just keeps the energy like really fucking going. I think like the kind of pre-chorus chorus of This Is Absolution is like, it's one of the overlooked. I mean, Killswitch, obviously, they've got so many huge choruses. But I think in particular, it's quite kind of overlooked, just like the guitar melodies in the background, the way the singing goes with it.
It's amazing. And if it wasn't My Curse, you could put This Is Absolution as the first single. And I think people will get just excited.
Because what other singles did they do? They did Arms of Sorrow as a single, wasn't it? Because I remember the video for it.
I want to talk about Arms of Sorrow. It's an absolutely brilliant ballad, slower number. It's really good. It is responsible for however many awful warehouse slow motion metalcore videos there have been in the last 20 years.
That's what I remember about the whole video, yeah.
They all stem from the Arms of Sorrow video. That is something they have to live with.
It's a cross they have to bear, yeah.
Having that as, you have quite dark, evil opener. You've got the 100 miles an hour. This Is Absolution with a massive chorus and feeling, you could take on the world. Then it just slows you down. It's a great move. If this was like, say, later on in the album, you wouldn't fault them for it.
No.
But it's a brave move. You got Unbroken. We've talked about My Curse.
But I think one thing that gets overlooked on this, even what would be classed as maybe like album tracks, some of the ones on this to me are probably some of my favorite Killswitch tunes. Like For You is amazing. That whole like middle section, it's really typical Killswitch. And then the middle section is very Killswitch as well, but it kind of comes out of nowhere from the rest of the song. You almost think it's done. And then it brings into this like little new section sort of thing, which is really, really nice. And then kicks back in with like a bigger version of the chorus.
Still beats your name. I think apart from the big ones, is one of my favorite. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, just that cool riff at the start, the huge drum fill, the little dun, and then back into the fast bit is so good. It's so good. Follow it through, it kind of drops it back down again. Well, it keeps the energy going. Desperate Times, again, kind of really slow, but again, huge layers, big, huge, trilly, melodic-y, reverby guitars. I mean, there's probably, It's probably no surprise to anyone that knows me or has heard the band that I'm in that, that's a huge thing for me. And then, I'm not gonna lie, probably definitely top 5, potentially top 3, definitely top 3 if you take Alive or Just Breathing out of it. Reject Yourself as a closer
is massive.
It's fucking amazing. Like, I don't know if you've heard one of the latest, in fact, it might be the latest as we're talking, Hard Law episode where they're talking about the best
album closers. Yeah.
From start to finish, I love every section of that song. All the rest, like all my warm-ups, all the guys it drives them mad, the guys in Cops will tell you. All my warm-ups when I'm warming up for shows, sound checks and stuff, it's basically playing riffs from that song.
It is absolutely massive. And I think Hope is better as a final track.
I do love Hope Is as well.
Hope is an amazing final track. Just keeping on the Hard Law episode, I want to throw in for my best closers of all time: Map Change, White Guilt, Star Baby, Hold Be Held.
Hold Be Held, 100%.
They're some of them are quite recent and recency bias. However, White Guilt is a classic, and Map Change is the greatest heavy song that has been released in the last 10 years.
James from Mastiff was actually...
he posted loads.
And my contributions to it were A Last Time for Everything by Zao, the last track off Fear Makes Us... Fear is What Keeps Us Here, which is the one where it just gets more and more distorted as it goes on, to the point where it just becomes like white noise, but it does it over a really slow duration. It's so good. And then and Stolen Days by Hope Con off Death Knows Your Name. Off the back of Daylight Dies, what are your thoughts on the new Killswitch, on this Consequence?
It doesn't have the highs of Atonement, but it doesn't have the lows of Atonement either.
Do you know what? That's a hell of a... I think you've got it on the nose. Like,
Atonement has The Signal Fire and Crownless King, which are great, but they're made great by the guest performances. Obviously, Howard on The Signal Fire and Chuck Billy on The Crownless King. And they're amazing.
Yeah.
The rest of the album, I think, is really, really uninspired.
Yeah, it didn't hit it for me either. Like, and it's a shame because it's absolutely, it's the Richie Beckett artwork. The artwork's amazing. Those songs are great. But again, for me, the previous one,
Incarnate,
again, it was all right. I love Disarm the Descent, the first one back with Jesse.
It's amazing, Disarm the Descent.
It's probably top 2, potentially top 3 Killswitch records. Like, I think start to finish, that record's incredible. Some of the tracks on it, like The Call.
Beyond the Flames is one of my favourite Killswitch tracks of all time.
No End in Sight. Like, there's some amazing stuff on that record. After hearing the couple of singles, I wasn't sure for the couple of singles off this Consequence, because in isolation, I was a bit like, and I think it's because... and I feel hate saying this because he's one of my favourite vocalists and still is, but I think it feels like Jesse's maybe stuck in a rut with his choruses. Like, his verses, his bridges, his screams are still amazing, but then the choruses, it just seems to be it's like, oh, here's that chorus again. So I was going into it with not low expectations, but I was going in thinking, let's see, like, there's going to be a couple. There was a lot more good on there than I was expecting there to be.
I think the first single they put out really made me worry.
Yeah,
because agreed. I thought the first track, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the weakest moment on the album. Immediately, I was just like, I can't. If it's like this, I'm going to be hurt.
The first single, you mean, rather than the first track?
The first single.
Yeah.
The first single is the weakest moment, but then you have got some absolutely like I said, there's nothing, genuinely top tier Killswitch on here. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because it's a consistently steady album.
Yeah.
Without deep valleys. You've got stuff like Discordant Nation.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sounds like it could have been on Disarm the Descent.
Yeah, and the same for The Fall of Us as well.
Yeah. I Believe is really good. Broken Glass, really good.
Yeah, because was it Forever Aligned was the single, wasn't it? Was that the first single? I Believe was a single as well, wasn't it, I think?
If I Believe it came out first, I would have been a lot more receptive to the album. I think I've reviewed it and I've gave it a 7 out of 10, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
But I've also said when you compare it to other bands of their peers, so you look at bands like of their age who've released albums over the last few years. Darkest Hour last year, fantastic record. Unearth a few years ago, one of the best things they've done, in my opinion.
Is that the one with the big sun on the front? Or
yeah, the Oppenheimer breakdown.
Yeah.
The Oppenheimer breakdown's amazing. It's one of the stupidest things in recent times, and it's beautiful. Bleeding Through, which I know you like, the new album from Bleeding Through.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Obviously, I saw them at Damnation, and one of the new tracks to play was Dead But So Alive, which a few people have poo-pooed. I fucking love. If at this point in your career you have to write something that, to please the crowd that people will love, Dead But So Alive is a banger.
Yeah.
But no, I think Daylight Dies it's weird to think an album with one of the band's biggest songs on is underrated, but I believe it is, because obviously when people mention the albums, they do tend to gloss it over. It's one of the best ones for me. It has some incredibly underrated moments on it. If you're forgetting, I don't think it was that good, just go back and listen to it, mate. Just go.
Well, this is everyone's spur on to go and give it a listen, innit?
And the Holy Diver cover as well. You either like it or you don't. I personally like it, but I think I like it more once I've had a few beers.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. Like they do it justice, if you know what I mean. If you've never seen the video to it as well, it's quite a laugh.
The video's
as well.
Great.
It's a great video to it. It's just super fun. So yeah, everyone go and have a listen to As Daylight Dies. One last question about the pod. Have you got a kind of a dream guest? Have you got like an absolute, if I got that person on the pod, that'd be it, I'd be done?
I think there's a few and none of them will be too surprising. Obviously Brandon, I think from Bleeding Through, I think he keeps quite in touch with the scene, but also, he was in 18 Visions using Throwdown. His influences will be quite similar. Emma from Dying Wish.
Yep.
I think she would be fantastic to have on.
Mm-hmm.
I put a bit of a call out in the Ithaca episode, but Jamila from Ithaca, I know one of her favourite albums is Of Love and Lunacy by Still Remains. And Jamila, if you listen to this is the second time, come on the podcast, talk some shit, talk about Still Remains. Fucking love to have you. A hard law crossover episode, I think, would be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Carson from Callistow Boys.
Yeah.
He'd bring some mad shit onto the table.
The thing about guesting is because I've been talking about recently, like, who would mine be? And so I'm just shooting for the moon. Like, I want Rob Halford. I want to get Rob Halford on talking about chippy teas. Who better to be on a metal podcast about chippies than the metal god himself?
Exactly. He's the most British, apart from Ozzy, he's the most British metal person alive.
And he also just seems like the fucking greatest guy ever. Like,
He
if you
seems so
follow him on like
lovely.
Instagram and stuff, like, he's fucking amazing. Like, I'd love to have him on. So yeah, if anybody can put me in touch with Rob Halford's team, then please do, so we can get Rob Halford on and talk about chips. So, Chris, we've chatted about the core, your roots into music. Now, the Northeast has a fierce reputation for fatty foods.
Yes, it does.
Let's dive into some chippy chat.
Hit me with it.
So, whereabouts are you taking me? What chip are we going to?
I'm going to take you to a chippy which I've only found in the last few years. So I'm from a place called Washington, which is right in the middle of Newcastle and Sunderland. And Yerson, if you listen to this, I've got an NE postcode. I'm from Newcastle. Don't come at me. Over that side of the water, when I was a kid, used to go to a place called South Shields quite a bit. There was a place there called Coleman's Fish and Chips, which is massive in South Shields. Absolutely amazing. One of those places where on a nice day, the queues around the block.
Coleman's, like the mustard?
Yes.
Yeah.
No E. Coleman.
Yeah, Coleman's, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think the mustard has an E either, does it? Who knows?
Can't remember. Moved over to North Shields with my partner, and in Whitley Bay, she took me there. Is a place called Seashells. It was one night I just said, I really fancy chippy tea, and that was the first thing she said. It's a not too far drive. It's about a few minutes from the coast, but it's just a lovely one of those, barely enough room to fit about 5 people standing in.
Nice.
Because there's a big fridge full of pop and stuff.
Can't wait to get into that.
It's got a little, you can stick your head in and shout if you want something.
Do you have to shout up a fish on the way in?
Sometimes you do. If it's not on the board for the night, you've got to shout up. We've been in the queue and just some blokes walked in and just went, "So," and just like walked away because there's a pub across the road.
Yeah, perfect.
So he's clearly going for a pint, come back, his fish will be ready. But it's genuinely my favorite chippy. I can't see myself going anywhere else now.
I mean, this
really.
is what we want. I mean, there's sometimes nothing better in life than just finding a new chippy. Like, there's a point, especially if you've moved to somewhere new And you get apprehension about, especially if you've had a chippy that you've always loved that you've had to move away from. And you have this apprehension of even just moving from one side of a city to another, like you've kind of done, you don't have to go far, but it's just too far to justify going back to your previous chippy. You're not going to drive 45 minutes or whatever it might be to go there. So I'm very happy that that was a situation that didn't become a horror for you.
One of the worst things in life is where you move somewhere or you move with a partner and the place that your partner loves, you just don't.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, partners tasting Indians, Chinese, that sort of thing, it's been good so far. But I've moved places before and you don't know what you're doing. You don't know where you're ordering from. You've got to have trial and error before you find something you like, or you get food poisoning from somewhere. But no, Seashells, Whitley Bay, absolutely great.
So that's in Whitley. So it's not in North Sea, it's in Whitley Bay, is it?
It's in Whitley Bay. It's technically, it all tends to blend together in a little plate in like that kind of area. It's Monk Seaton, it's Whitley Bay. If you search Seashells Whitley Bay, you'll find it.
It'll come up.
It's also opposite a really, really nice Chinese as well, but we're not here to talk about that.
That's handy to know. So obviously, I assume you're having chips.
Of course.
So what size portion are we getting when you go in there?
Large.
Always?
Always large.
Of course you are. What's your main accompaniment then to the chips?
When I was younger, it used to be a battered sausage all the time.
Yep.
But now it's just a large cod and chips.
Large cod and chips. Can't go wrong, can you?
However, on a busy night, and they do get really busy, like I said, being opposite a pub, you'll get people coming all over. I've been converted to fish bites.
Okay, yeah, just lately. Like almost like smaller pieces of cod, are they?
Yeah, because obviously people see them, don't get them as much. If it's busy, I'll go for them. Both absolutely delicious.
Fish bites can be deceptive sometimes because people might see them and see it as maybe like a smaller portion. But then sometimes I'm convinced, like, depending on the size of the bites, you'll go somewhere sometimes and you'll get 5 or 6 fish bites instead of a cod. And when you put them all together, you're like, this is probably as big as, if not bigger than a cod.
They're quite dense.
There's more batter, isn't there? There's almost maybe the same amount of batter that you get on a cod, but surrounding a smaller piece of fish times 5 or 6 or whatever.
They are quite dense. And I think if people see them as like a kiddie meal.
Yeah. Like, so the chippy by us, I think they're only maybe even on the kid. They'll let you if you order one, but they don't advertise it on the main menu. Like on the kiddies menu, it'll be 3 fish bites and chips or whatever. There's no limit on ordering it. But I don't think it's actually on the main list.
My partner's not. She's not a fish woman. She's a bad sausage.
Yeah.
No innuendo, but you mind out the gut of you people.
Yeah, filth. My wife's the same. She's more of a sausage, or she likes a chicken. When you get a quarter chicken from the chippy, it's like a leg and a bit of breast or whatever.
I don't think ours does that. Ours does the standard kebab. Does beanies. She likes a beanie. I'm not a fan of those.
A beanie? Go on.
It's like a fried ball of baked beans.
Oh, kind of like a bean fritter, like you get a pea fritter, but
yeah. It's just called a beanie.
Oh, I mean, I'm not a beans man. To me, that sounds fucking vile. I can get behind a pea fritter or a spam fritter or something, but no, a beanie does not sound like something I would enjoy.
I'm a massive bean man. I just think it's too far.
Yeah.
Science has taken us too far.
Fair play to your partner. She knows what she likes, so she's gone for it, and I'm never going to.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Salt and vinegar.
No vinegar, just salt.
Just salt.
Vinegar.
Oh, that's fair enough. Not a fan of the tang?
No, just I don't know what it is. I've got quite a sensitive nose, and it gets up there.
Going to the chippy brings tears to my eyes as well, but not because of the not because of the aroma of the vinegar.
Again, my partner is a fiend for it.
For vinegar?
He's fiend for vinegar.
Yeah.
She gets it in the shop, and as soon as we get back, when we're planing up back home, she's just putting more on.
But salt wise, I mean, do you have any preference? Just a light covering? Do you want it drenched?
Just a little covering, depending on how it is. I'll have you when I get back home.
Yeah, but generally not loads.
Generally not loads, no.
Ah, fair enough. Do you get any moisture on the side?
Pot of gravy, pot of curry sauce.
Oh, nice too. Right, here we go. Are you a pourer? Are you a dipper?
Dipper.
That's good. So, and here's another question. Do you dip your fish, if you have cod, into either of those things?
Yes.
Both?
Both.
Interesting.
Both. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of it. That's what we're there for.
Yeah, I love both, but I've always been very much I'd be the same, I'd dip, but I'd probably only dip my chips. Don't know why. I don't want to even say it's wrong. It's not opinion, because I know I'm probably in the minority when it comes to it. But yeah, for some reason, I'm always sauces for the chips, the fish. I don't have any sauce on my fish. I quite like it.
I don't trust pourers. I like to be able to, I like the control.
Yeah.
I like to be able to be like, I want this chip just plain.
Well, because you can pick it up and you can assess the chip and have a look at it and be like, this looks like an absolute belter. Like, this isn't going to need anything else. And then sometimes you might see it and you just get a feeling that it just needs a little bit, maybe a little bit something more.
100%. Obviously, it's pretty basic chip shop curry, what we're getting here. I want to shout out, I can't remember the name, went to a place in Wales called Mould.
Oh.
Years ago.
Yeah. It's not a million miles from where I grew up from that. So I grew up in Chester, and Mould's kind of just the other side of the border, a bit further down, yeah.
Went into the town centre one day and he took us to a fish and chip shop and they had curry sauce and said, oh, which one do you want?
Yeah.
And
so this is a big thing in Wales.
They had like a regular one, chip shop curry. Then like it was a redder one. It was redder, it was hotter, it was a little bit fruitier.
Yeah.
And I got both and it was beautiful.
So
and I've not been back into any part of Wales where I'll get a chippy since, and I'm still chasing it.
Where my wife's family are from in South Wales in the valleys, they've got an amazing local chippy, like a really, really good one. It had to be remodeled a couple of years back because someone drove a car through the front of it, which is amazing. I think it was an accident, but it proper went straight. It's like it's right next to like a little mini roundabout, and this car fucked it and just went straight through the front of the thing. I mean, I live in a big city now, you're in Bristol sort of thing, you get like a large cod and chips and you're looking at, somewhere between 50 and 20 quid nowadays or something like that in a local place like, and it's good and you get plenty, but it's the sort of place you'll go there and you'll get a large cod and chips and it still only costs you like $6.50 or something. And it makes you wonder how they do it with the price of cod nowadays. But it's amazing. But I think they have 3 in there. So there's like a kind of standard curry sauce and there's like a spicy one. And there's one, I'm sure there's one they call it, it's like almost like Irish, like an Irish curry sauce. Now, I don't know if that's the fruitier one or the spicier one. I'm not too sure. But they offer 3.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And they're all great.
I would be getting all 3.
Like a little platter.
I like to have the variety. I like to have the choice. But honestly, when she said what curry sauce, I think I must have genuinely looked a bit like, what do you mean? I've also gotten stick, and I'm going to put quite a controversial food take out here. In Newcastle, the vast majority of takeaways, if on a night out, you say, can I get curry and chips or chips and gravy from a takeaway, you can get it. The further south you go, the more allergic they are to having anything on chips.
In the country, you mean?
Yeah, in the country.
Yeah, agreed.
And when I went to Middlesbrough, one of the first nights out I ever went on, I asked for chips and gravy and I just got laughed at by the bloke.
Now, all right, okay, I'll go to something. When you were talking about going further south, I thought we were talking like, you get down to London, the southeast. I wasn't expecting you to go kind of, barely kind of half an hour, 40 minutes down the road to Middlesbrough. I didn't think, when you said south, I didn't think you mean like literally just south of Newcastle.
It's a different world. I asked for curry on chips and gravy on chips, and I got laughed out the shop. And what I'm going to tell you, if you haven't had it, it will change your life. Curry sauce on kebab meat.
Like chip shop curry on kebab meat? Yeah, I can imagine. I can totally imagine that.
Beautiful.
That sounds amazing.
Absolutely beautiful. Little bit of spice, little bit of moisture.
Were these places that were denying you the moisture, were they chippies or were they more like kind of kebab houses, like kebab fries? Houses,
but in Newcastle, if you ask if they have it, the vast majority in Newcastle, if you say, "Oh, can I have gravy on curry on chips?" they'll give you it. This bloke was just like, "No, we don't do that here." It's like, I'm not in another country. I'm not halfway around the world. Like you said, I'm 40 minutes down the road.
Yeah, that's blown my mind. I wasn't expecting you to still be in the northeast.
Parmo, though, can't beat a good Parmo.
Oh, well, yeah. Middlesbrough's absolutely famous for a Parmo, isn't it? Do you order anything to eat while you wait?
No. I'm normally quite good. It's also even when it's busy, it's quite quick.
Right.
They are shit hot. I think the most I've ever waited was 10 minutes. And that's when it was like rammed on a hot day.
Yeah, I mean, 10 minutes is plenty of time to get something else in while you wait. It doesn't take long.
If it was even longer, I'd go to the pub. I'd have a drink while I was waiting. I wouldn't have something to eat while I was waiting.
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. I mean, for me, it doesn't take long to get through one because normally it'll be a sausage and the dog will have half of it. Obviously, we talked about the beanie before. Are there any other kind of like local specialties or anything that you get up there that you don't like? Obviously, we talked about the chip spice mix that they have in Hull on chippies. I can't remember what it's called now. It's just called chip spice, isn't it? I think, or whatever they were talking about.
I've never had that.
Is there anything you have up there that's more local?
If there might be in some chippies, but it's pretty It's pretty straightforward, pretty straight-laced. We love our garlic mayo up here.
Yep.
I've got garlic mayo once or twice if I've been in the mood for it. Just me chips, not me fish.
I don't think I get that on chippy chips. Like I love, like garlic mayo is my go-to if I go to like a takeout, like a typical kebab place or shawarma place where you're getting something more like that. It'll be garlic mayo every time on the kebab or on the chips or whatever. But I don't think I'd ever. I'm not saying I wouldn't like it. I'm sure it'd be banging. I would never choose it with a chippy.
I would like somewhere to have like a nice salt kind of thing. Have you had here salt before?
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
Like chicken salt.
Oh, right,
like chicken stock mixed in with other spices.
Yeah.
But that's really, really good on chippy chips. You can probably get it like in a seasoning thing somewhere. But here salt's really, really nice on chips. If places up here offered anything like that, I say next time I go to Hull, I can't see myself. I've been to Hull once and it wasn't nice. And I can't see myself going again.
What's your thoughts on Old Bay on fries or on chips?
I don't mind it.
I always think it's quite similar to if you go to Wingstop and get like the Wingstop style fries, not like the Cajun ones or whatever. Like the Wingstop
go for
ones.
lemon pepper.
Yeah, but the Wingstop ones are quite, they're almost like, it's quite a sweet kind of seasoning that's on them.
We've just got a Wingstop in Newcastle and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Bad times when it opened here, just mainly for waistlines, because it is good.
Where I live, we are just sort of out of like centre of Newcastle Deliveroo Uber Eats range,
right?
Which I think is really good.
Yeah,
we're literally about 5 minutes out of the range, and I think that's a blessing because Wingstop being easily accessible would probably finish me off.
The Wingstop one is normally if we've had a big night the night before and we're hammered. It's kind of like, I think it's replaced like the classic McDonald's delivery now. It used to be the classic 2 double cheeseburgers and like a draft Coke from Mackey's. And I think now it's the
wings and tender combo.
Yeah, 8 wings, 3 tenders.
Yeah.
Just fucking loads of dip, some honey mustard, some Korean barbecue.
That's my go-to. If next time you're in Newcastle, there's a place called Hen and Hops.
Okay.
And it's a tiny little independent wing place. It only seats about like 20 people. I'll take you there.
Sounds great.
They do like fancy beers and stuff as well, but they do like a really good range of sauces and stuff. It's a really, really nice place.
We've got an amazing place in Bristol and it was always just food trucks, but they've got like a permanent place now. Well, it opens literally this Friday, but it's called Gert Wings.
I love their buffalo. It's amazing.
They're finally opening a proper kind of bricks and mortar place, and it's like literally, it's like 10 minutes walk from our house, which is going to be fucking dangerous. But it's incredible for anyone that comes down to Bristol. Like they've just opened up a new place in Reading. I think I can't remember what it's called, but there's some sort, I want to say it's called like Blue Collar or Blue something Market. They've just opened a unit there as well. And I think the trucks get up to places like Gloucester, out to Weston, Swindon, kind of a few places in the southwest, but it genuinely is incredible.
I'm trying to get down to Bristol for some point for some gigs. I can see myself having a good time.
Hit me up. We'll look after you. You mentioned the fridge before. Pop. What kind of pop you choosing?
Full sugar iron brew, full sugar Pepsi.
So we're talking here. Let's have a listen here. So, as you might probably see me. It's not full sugar, but I am on the iron brew.
Iron brew X is really nice.
Yeah, I'm a pop fiend, so I'm definitely addicted to kind of like soft drinks and stuff. I don't really drink a lot. My wife would tell you no water, and she's probably right. I don't really drink water unless it's got Vimto in it, but I drink loads and loads of pop, so I just have to drink zero sugar, like low-cal ones, because otherwise, like, I'd be dead.
I'm always on the Pepsi Max, but I only drink full sugar Pepsi when I go to the chippy.
Oh, like an extra treat?
Yeah, it's a little treat. I see the full sugar Pepsi, I'm like, right, okay, one of them.
That's probably one of the only times I'll have full sugar drinks, to be fair. Like, generally, like I say, a Vimto, like a full sugar, or a Rio, or something like that. If they've got something more exciting, I'm a big fan of a Ting.
I don't mind a Ting. I like a Fanta Lemon.
Yep.
On occasion.
What are your thoughts on Fanta Fruit Twist?
Don't like it.
See, I'm into it.
Not a fan.
And I think it's because I couldn't tell you what it is. It tastes of everything and nothing at the same time.
When they used to do full sugar versions of it, full sugar Apple Tango.
Oh, Apple Tango, yeah.
God tier. No sugar Apple Tango is all right, but full sugar Apple Tango was genuinely one of the great losses because of the sugar tax.
I went through a big Apple Tango phase at its peak. Yeah, when you still had drinks like that and ties are knocking about and stuff.
Yeah.
Halcyon days of pop. But we can't have it now because of woke, Chris.
Because of the other woke nonsense. I enjoy an energy. I enjoy an energy drink because I don't like coffee or anything, and I'm too miserable to function otherwise.
Oh, okay. So you get your boost from the...
There used to be a lemon ice relentless that was clearly just more sugar than anything else.
Yeah.
And that died with the sugar tax, and now that's again, it's gone to the great fridge in the sky of long lost drinks.
So that's your go-to. You talked about there being a fridge full of pop. Is there anything exciting in there, or is it just all quite standard chippy stuff?
It's what you expect and it's what you want. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you've got like your ginger ales, your dandelion and burdocks.
Perfect.
There's a good few little things of shandy in there. There's nothing, you know, I've been to some chippies and I have like, you know, some like, I'm going to sound so utter woke nonsense when I say this, you know, like those like wild American drinks and stuff like that. No, This is very classic. I think the most wild thing I've ever seen in there is like an American cream soda.
Okay.
That's fine. That's allowed.
A classic drink, to be fair.
Yeah. It's really classic, and it does, like I said, the size of it, one or two people on the till and one bloke working his arse off back and forth, fishing, chips in. It's just got a good little atmosphere.
Perfect.
It's absolutely lovely.
Amazing. So there we are. That's your chippy order. I don't think you've disgraced yourself, Chris. I know you were worried you were going to, but I mean, large cod and chips. I mean, it's common to garden fish chipping. You can't really go too wrong with that.
Oh, it's the curry sauce and kebab meat thing. I think people will come for me for, but the vast majority of people won't have tried it, and they should try it.
Keep your opinions to yourself until you've put themselves in your shoes, essentially. Right, well, now the chippy chat's out the way. Anyone that's listened to the pod before will know that last section gives our guests an opportunity to tell us about anything that's coming up in the future, and this is a section we like to call...
So this Thursday, it's Ash, the guitarist from Fox Cult, Ashley Carrera. She's amazing, like one of the best post-hardcore type guitarists around. And she's talking about Saracens' debut album, the Bug album.
Right, okay.
People know. If you don't know Fox Cult, they're very, very ambitious post-hardcore band. They've recently just got a new vocalist. And it's quite annoying because in the episode, I praised the vocalist so much that a few days later, she left on good terms, you know, but it was just like, oh, that's a bit bad timing. But no, it's a really, really fun episode because, you know, they're one of those bands where there's a clear Saracen influence, and Ash, she's such a massive fan of them. She wears her influences herself on a sleeve, and it's so good. I'll give a little hint as well because I've mentioned him a few times this episode. We've got James from Mastiff coming on to talk about Zao as well.
Nice.
Not going to give the album away, but that's a really fun episode. Few more episodes to come after that. But yeah, I think one thing I just want to plug as well is, plug it for yourself as well, Noise Fest.
Yeah, let's talk Noise Fest.
So end of April.
I think it's the 26th, I think, isn't it?
26th of April. In Cardiff. It is the second Noise Fest. The first one was last year. And if you went last year, you'd know, obviously we did it in Moon and Fuel. It was great. It was just such a fantastic little day. I've been with Noise for a few years, but it's a culmination of, you know, their hard work and what they've done for the scene. This year, what they've done is amazing. Like the jump, I'm not trying to cite the last year's, but the jump between, you know, got Unpeople headlining, Unpeople who are supporting Metallica
in stadiums. Yeah, it's insane.
Are headlining. We've got Hidden Mothers who, you know, their album came out last year. It's amazing. We've got Orchards. We've got Forlorn. Some band called Cops are on there.
Absolute reprobates.
Mastiff, they're on there as well. Bands like Gender Warfare, El Muno. Yeah,
Knife Bride.
Yeah, Knife Bride as well. Love
Continence,
Rarely.
is it? No, not Continence.
Continence?
Yeah, Continence. Yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely massive. And for the second year, going across 3 stages, it's absolutely wild. Like, if you can get to Wales, if you're near Wales, 26th of April, get a ticket. So many good bands. It's going to be a sick day. And you'll see me, if you get there, you get down early, you'll see the headliner. You'll see yourself, obviously opening up one of the stages.
I've got a wedding in Liverpool that evening, so that's why we were like, we'll play, but we're going to have to play first because I've got to be in Liverpool for like 6:30, and we're playing at like 2 or something. I don't know, but
I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's going to be tight. I'll probably end up missing a bit of it, but it is what it is. No, I'm really looking forward to it. Like I say, just our stage in particular for us in terms of, it's Forlorn, who we've played a show with, we're friends with, we know, Hidden Mothers, who obviously, we go back years with, obviously toured with. Fake Your Death, who, again, we've played shows with. They remixed one of our songs. Pleiades, friends of Riff and Chips, and again, another amazing band.
Andy, great bloke.
Yeah, great front man. Every Hell, another great band. So, and that's just one stage. And then, on top of that, you've got all those other bands we were talking about. It's, it's going to be a really good day.
It's not just bands like Noise Champions. It's bands that people at Noise, feel an affinity with, they love, they want to promote. We want to be part of their journey.
So yeah, there we go. So that's Noise Fest on the 26th. And then another recap. So you say most recent episode by the time this comes out, or that we do, will be Ash from Fox Cult talking about Say Us In.
Yeah.
And then we say we've also got the lovely James from Mastiff talking about a as yet unconfirmed Zao album. Are you looking to do a certain amount of episodes, then take a break and do a second series? Or is it something you're going to look to try and kind of just keep going?
My laptop's pretty knackered. I don't have the facility to record anymore at the moment.
Yeah.
So once it gets to 15, there'll be a little break. We're going out on a big episode. I'm not going to spoil it, but pretty good episode to finish it off with.
Nice.
I've got a few people who are interested in doing ones in the future. I've got some cool names, some cool albums, but there's going to be a little hiatus after 15 while I get some ducks in a row. But I'm going to try and get some double episodes on with, say, 2 people from one band. Try and get ones where there's 2 people from different bands. It's a bit of fun. I'm having a really fun time doing it. It's every episode, I think, is good in its own way. Good little chats, good little albums. That's the whole point of doing it. It's have fun doing it, talk about music you love, and help people talk about the bands.
Yeah. So yeah, for anyone that's not had the pleasure of enjoying an episode of The Core yet, it's available from all usual podcast streaming locations, delivered by the Noise Network, who put out quite a few pods, some of which we may or may not also be speaking to as part of this mini-series. Chris, thank you for coming on Riff and Chips.
Thank you very much for having us, Phil. An absolute pleasure. And like I said, your podcast is one of the people I looked to for some inspiration when I started doing mine. Little full circle moment.
Yeah, I appreciate that, mate. It's nice to know that I've had a bit of an impact. Definitely see you at Noise Fest in about 8 weeks' time.
Yes, you will.
Take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
That was Chris from The Core He took us to Seashells in Whitley Bay and ordered a large cod and chips with just salt as the vinegar messes with his precious little nose. He likes to get a pot of curry and gravy for dipping and won't order anything to eat while he's waiting, but he might pop for a pint. He'll wash his chippy down with an iron brew or a Pepsi. As always, I want to see your chippy teas too, so don't forget to tag us in any pics or let us know your favourite local chippy on socials using @RiffandChips. Thanks to Rob Collier for providing the dive bomb, Edgar Gibbs for the screams, and Ryan Westwood for the artwork. See you in a week's time for our next episode.